Well, it is once again Monday here in the United States. It's the post-Thanksgiving Monday as we come out of our wonderful turkey-fueled comas that is the Thanksgiving weekend. I always have to remind myself that these things aren't universal. They don't all translate, right? And so I'm always curious, am I ever saying things that are totally US centric? So I always try to make sure I'm not doing too much of that. But good evening, Ekaterina. Thank you for joining me here on what is actually a lovely Monday here in my part of the world, at least, although I know your weather's better than mine. So kudos to you for being in one of my favorite cities on earth.
Thank you for inviting me to this initiative. I'm very excited. I really don't know what to expect, but yeah, very excited.
Well, it makes me feeling better. I never know what to expect until we start getting into it, and then we just see what happens, and we see, if anybody decides to throw comments at us while we go, and it'll be what it is. It's the joy of we're doing it live, as they say. But so, Ekaterina, I know you from the conference world, but how did you get into technology in the first place? And then we'll certainly delve into, what made you think kicking off a conference was a good idea.
Sure. Well, actually, this is kind of a long story.
Good, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. Okay. All right. So basically, it all started like around 10 years ago when I fall in love with digital marketing. And at that time, all this buzz around mobile apps and push notifications was just starting. And at that
Mhm.
time, not all big brands actually had mobile apps. So I was really into that industry, and I really liked actually participating and creating digital products and brainstorm about how we could innovate, what kind of new features we could launch that could actually help retailers like Mango or like Gucci and companies like that actually be one of the first technology disruptors in the industry. And that's how, let's say, um, my technology experience started. Let's call it like this. So I was traveling around the world every week. It was like the best part of my job as well. Uh, so like one week in Switzerland, another in Italy, third in France, fourth in England, and it was absolutely amazing to meet CTOs, digital directors of companies like Burberry, of companies like Hublot,
Mm,
companies like
wow.
Nestle. And like this, actually, my world of networking started.
Sure.
That's how, I could say like, hey, I know like the decision makers around the world and the projects that they were working on. They were very interesting. So I could say like I really loved my job. It was just like a
Mhm.
perfect combination of like traveling, innovating, this part of communication that I like a lot, like not always like work in front of the computer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it was absolutely great. I one day, it was back in 2015, I received a message from a current CEO of Apiumhub. Apiumhub is a software architecture company based here in Barcelona. And I remember he was like, "Hey, like you are really into the tech industry." Um, and we are actually founding a new company called Apiumhub. And at that time, there was just Christian. Well, Christian, actually, you met in Global Software Architecture
Yes.
Summit, and he's like really, really techie guy. So he was like, but why do we need you actually? Like marketing? Like who needs marketing? Marketing is needed only
Hmm.
when the product is
Mm,
worth
eh.
or when And I was like, Christian, you're not really right. He was like, we build quality software, like we are good, so we can do that just with referrals. Like actually, like companies refer us, like yes, but not at the speed like you would like to
Right.
grow.
Right.
And he was like, "You are still like not convincing me. Like, why do we need you?" And I remember first weeks getting the CEO. He was like, "Hey, give her some time, and you will
Right.
see the speed, like how fast we will grow."
Right.
Um, and I remember it was just like the company was starting, so we didn't have a portfolio with the previous company. I was like, okay, we have done projects for Mango, we have done projects for Repsol, so like just by naming these companies, like we were gaining credibility with this new
Right.
company. I was like, hey, we're just starting, we build working software, like trust us.
Yeah.
And after so yeah, at first it wasn't that easy, but I was super excited because I'm that kind of person who loves challenges. I like to do something new, I like to grow, so for me this kind of challenge was like also very very exciting, very exciting. And as let's say I had to build a marketing department from scratch, I was like, yeah, absolutely, this is like my baby,
Yeah.
that that I would, yeah, just like grow the way I
Mm-hmm.
see it. And step by step, yeah, first actually like accepting all the requests by our clients, um, really like offering lower prices than our competitors, just like
Sure.
to gain this portfolio and to enter the market. Finally, once we proved that we are good, once we yeah, created like a portfolio, I was like, okay, this challenge is, how do you call it, like is past, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, what can we do more? And then I was like, okay, we are actually not participating in any communities, and right
Sure.
now in this technology world, I think um, participating and sharing knowledge and getting to know other experts in these industries is critical. So first we started by actually discovering what kind of communities we would like to collaborate with. Actually, one
Sure.
of the communities is Java community, the
Yep.
one that organizes JavaConf in Barcelona,
Mm-hmm.
where you also um, give speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with them, we started to organize events. We started to invite them to our events. They started to invite us. We started to support them with this annual event. Then we were like, okay, and what about our proper events? And we started to brainstorm like what we could share that is not shared, let's say in
Sure.
in Barcelona market. And Christian was always positioning himself as software architect, and probably you guys in the US, it's like something like software architect, like of course, like we have this let's say role for ages, right? in
Sure.
in Barcelona, it wasn't like this. So software architecture is pretty new.
Okay.
I would say that people started to put their, let's say, job position as software architect just maybe like 5 years ago. People started to talk about software architecture in Barcelona around, yeah, like 5 years ago maybe. And when we were like, as a marketing person, I was like, okay, but how we position our company? And Christian was like, we are experts in software architecture. And when I was doing actually like a keyword research, I was like, Christian, we need to figure out something else, because like there is no volume. Like people don't search
Sure.
software architecture in Spain. It was like, no, 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 no. Like we are experts in software architecture. I was like, oh my god, and And then actually right now I'm so thankful to Christian because we were the first ones who positioned ourselves as let's say software architecture company
Sure.
in Spain. And right now we're unbeatable. So even though other companies in Spain started to also introduce software architecture services or create kind of like other meetups related to software architecture, as we were the first ones, and we started to create this software architecture community. Right now we are, let's say, the first ones who appear in Google search. We're the ones who created meetup group, which is called software architecture meetups. We started to organize software architecture events on a monthly basis, and it just started to grow exponentially. So every time we were like renting a new space because like the previous venue was like kind of
Too
like
small. Yep.
too small. I was like, wow, that's great. And then on that
Good
peak of,
problem to
let's
have.
that, yeah, then like the COVID arrived. I was like, no. And yeah, and we actually like started to ask our community members like, hey, do you want to actually us keep organizing like online meetups? And we saw like it's not the same. The engagement,
Yeah.
the people started to be like very very tired of the online world. So we decided like to take a small break,
Sure.
and then focus only on offline events. And actually, like before COVID, we're like, okay, in our meetups, which are not supposed to be like big events, right? We
Mhm.
were like gathering more than 200 people, and we're like, okay,
Wow.
maybe it's time to
Wow.
actually organize like
Yeah.
a big event, like not a meetup but events.
Right.
And I really love organizing events. That's also like my favorite part. Also to have this opportunity to speak with other people, to live this offline world. I was like, of
Yep.
course, like I can be responsible for that. I know that that's stressful, but I like that. So for sure, so like you can count on me. And as we also take active part in other initiatives like creating surveys, participating in surveys, so we started to actually speak with software architecture influencers, experts around the world. And so it wasn't, let's say, a first approach when, for example, I contacted um, some of previous GSAS speakers, like, hey, you don't know me, but would you like to come to the conference? Actually, like we had like also like a prior contact before that, contributing to different initiatives. So when I said like, hey, actually we are organizing this global software architecture summit in Barcelona, everyone showed huge interest and said like, Barcelona. Mm, sounds like a plan.
I'm
And
yeah.
yeah, and it was like the first edition. It was already like 4 years ago. It was an absolute success because at first I didn't expect like it would be so easy to gather like legends in software architecture world, like in Barcelona. So in the first edition, we had Mark Richards, we had George Fairbanks, we had Lim Bass, we had Ian Gordon, and like other experts. And when they said like, yes, we're coming, uh, like Sandro Mancuso, well, and others, I was like, oh my god, like it's happening, it's real, it's cool. And then when we started to sell tickets, we didn't really have to do like really like push sales, let's say. We were
Mhm.
just announcing, we were spreading this news via communities where we also took active part.
Nice.
As well, I'm ambassador in different women in tech communities, and I always try like take active part there, send our developers to give like coaching sessions or promote their events or initiatives in our like social media channels or in newsletter where we have a lot of followers. So when I told them like, hey, here we have the event, and your community members could have several free passes and discounts. And it was really, I remember that feeling. I felt like united. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when you see like other communities and other people support you, and just hearing these words like, thank you for organizing this event in Barcelona, thank you for moving forward software architecture, it was like it's worth it, and it's something
Mm-hmm.
that makes me feel like I'm like accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
That's what motivates me. And when we received very positive feedback after the first edition, I think we took like maybe 1 week break, just like to breathe, just like to
Yep.
relax. And after 1 week, we already started to plan
Yep.
the next edition.
Yep.
uh, and I really enjoyed it because every edition connects you to different people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just that's amazing. For example, this year, I think you already had an opportunity to speak with Vladik Kononov. He's
Mm-hmm.
like a DDD expert. He's based in Israel, and he said actually like what you are describing about software architecture in Spain, that is what is happening in Israel as well. So it's
Sure.
not that developed. Like they have a lot of events about React, about DDD, about other topics, but not software architecture in particular. So he was like, and what about considering organizing one of the GSES editions in Israel? I'm like, okay, we are really like
Hmm.
going international then.
Heck yeah.
So let's like we are actually evaluating this topic because he said that there are actually famous software architects in Israel as well,
Yeah.
and they would also help us with the organization. So we are really thinking about this, but for now we decided to focus on the edition that we are planning in Barcelona. That's October. It will be even bigger, so we will have 2 days of talks and then like additional day with workshops. And when I think about it, it's just I don't know. I feel like I want it happening again. So I also
Right.
feel super happy that today you have confirmed, right, that you're coming to this event as well. Neil
I'll
Fort
be
is
there.
coming. So it's yeah, kind of like a tradition to meet once a year, right? And
Well, it's a great event. It's a great city. That's a wonderful combination, and I think it's an awesome audience too. And that's part of this as well from my side of the podium. When you get an opportunity to be in front of a passionate audience, that's worth its weight in gold too. And that's a testament to you and your crew and the community that you've built around that. That stuff doesn't just spring into existence. It
Mm,
takes a lot of effort and a lot of cultivation. And I think that's really I don't think we give enough credit for the folks that do that, because I do think that community is so important, and that ability for people to get together and bounce ideas off one another and have these sort of adjacent possible conversations, much as you and I are having here today. Again, I think that just doesn't get enough credit for how important that is, for our careers, for our ability to grow, et cetera. And just recognizing, hey, there are other people who are struggling with the same stuff I'm struggling with, or
mm.
hey, that person solved the problem that I'm having, and they have got some great advice for me. So to me, I think that's just such an important part of this whole equation. But I'm obviously biased, to say the least. But well, let's see. We got Glenn here. I know Glenn's piping in a little bit here. With I missed your comment earlier, Glenn. My apologies for that. But that seems to be a very consistent theme when I talk to folks like you who organize events, they start very grassroots, typically as a meetup, as a user group kind of a thing, and then they just sort of grow from there. And
Mm.
do you have any sort of thoughts, recommendations, advice on how to find a community, to grow a community? I mean, a lot of effort goes into that, and it can feel like you're not making a lot of traction for a while because nobody, well, I don't think anybody in our space starts with boom, instantaneously, I've got 1,000 people. It
Yeah.
takes some time. You have maybe 5 people, 10 people, and you got to be able to put
Mm.
in that perseverance to really grow it.
Mm. I think it's really important, the part of collaboration. I think actually this is like the key term nowadays. If,
Hmm.
let's say, last 2 years it was like about competition, maybe. I think this year's it's about collaboration, about sharing.
Sure.
Also, it's about like finding your niche. In
Yeah.
our case, there were just no events, like no, like zero events about software architecture in Spain. So we're like, we have an expert in software architecture. There is no content regarding software architecture. Like, why not to write about it in our
Yeah.
blog, and why not to share it via events? And then also, for example, when Coderance, like people can say Coderance is like our competitor because they're also like software development, software architecture
Hmm.
consultancy, and they were based in the UK, and then they opened an office in Barcelona, and people said like, oh, okay, you have a new competitor here in Barcelona, and we're like, in a way, yes, but in a way also like we have like-minded people.
Right.
So we were really like joining forces, and we were launching surveys together. We invited Sangro Mancuso, who is also co-founder of Coderance, to Global Software Architecture Summit. So he was participating in our interviews, and we felt like if Sandro has something to share, and this information is valuable, why should we hide it, or why should we say like we are better? Why not to invite him and just like collaborate and contribute to the community as a whole? And then I don't know, and like this we felt like we are moving further. Um, and gain more friends by joining forces.
Yeah.
Also, for example, I think it was right before COVID. JetBrains launched a new initiative. It was called Kotlin Everywhere, where they were actually, yeah, organizing like different events and companies that wanted to contribute to these initiatives and would take responsibility of hosting an event. Yeah, like would have privilege of, yeah, the collaboration with JetBrains. JetBrains would
Hmm.
send like the key speaker, and we constantly track like, yeah, leading companies, leading speakers, and when we find out about these initiatives, we always say like, hey, we're here, we can definitely help you with hosting an event, we can definitely send speakers from our side, or we can organize panel discussions. So it's not like us always giving talks, but it's like
Sure.
us who encourage others to share great knowledge. In terms of communities, for example, here in Barcelona, we have a lot of communities, like diversity communities, women in tech, women in software, women who code, Migra Code, where women who come from countries like Pakistan, India, and others, and are facing like cultural differences.
Sure.
So what we do, we host public and private events in Apiumhub office, and let's say when we see that there is a demand in showing or in teaching front-end architecture. So we're doing it for free. So we just encourage our front-end girls come to these events, just share their experiences, and just help. What else? Yeah, I would say like it was like a old fashioned, just like just to sell, because people right now are like really like overwhelmed with all this like bombing messages like buy from me or like I'm an expert. But if you really like show that you care, if you really contribute, then I think it just comes naturally.
Mhm.
It's like, let's say you kind of sell showing by doing, and not selling by saying.
Right, right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because here we're Thanksgiving was last week here in the U.S. and so the day after Thanksgiving is typically referred to here as Black Friday, and then today is Cyber Monday, and that's always one of those things I'm curious how much that exists outside of the states. But my inbox has been flooded, flooded with emails about this sale and that sale and save 20%. I'm just like, oh my God, just like please, enough, enough, enough. Like I realize the holidays are coming. You're going to get my money, but could you just give me a break? Like I just, oh, let me breathe. Let me breathe. So
Hmm.
Glenn's echoing a lot of what you're saying here about building community and making sure that folks feel welcome, bringing in new
Mhm.
speakers, having experienced speakers. And I know one of the things you and I talked a bit about in the pre-show. Now you're very involved in sort of women in tech. How do we get more women in tech? How do we make this a more welcoming community,
Hmm.
so that we can get the diversity of viewpoints to me is so important. And I've talked about this in the past about how one of the best things you can do on a project is bringing someone new in that's never seen the code before. They're going to see stuff you don't see, and they're not held back by that's how we've always done it. And that to me is magnified beyond just someone who's new to the code. It just bringing in another set of experiences, another perspective, another viewpoint to me is just super powerful. Man, how do we get more of that?
Yeah, that's let's say for me this is the biggest issue also in terms of event organization. I remember it was incredibly difficult to have, let's say, a good percentage of women participation in the summit. We had call for papers, but we reached the point that actually we didn't have, let's say, proposals by women at all. I think it is especially difficult in the software architecture world. So what we were doing, we were actually reaching women in software architecture manually. So I was writing them on LinkedIn. I was writing them on Twitter, saying like, "Hey, we are organizing this event, and we have seen your tremendous growth in this industry, and we would really love you." Sharing your experience with the event attendees. And unfortunately, even though these women have experience, they have like really high positions in very well known companies. What I saw from my personal experience, they have, let's say, issues with self esteem maybe, or they don't really believe and that
Mm,
they have like the same level. So the let's say the most common question that let's say the first question that I was receiving from them was, will there be other women? um,
mm,
so they were like, if I will be the only woman, like I'm not coming. So
sure.
they were really searching like for like-minded
Right.
girls to be there as well. And
Yeah, imposter syndrome is much more common than we'd like to believe in this space, and even more so, I think, for women, and I think that's really unfortunate. I can understand the will there be other women there. I was at an event, and I won't name names, but this extremely prominent person was talking about some of the things that she's experienced as a just an absolute, like, I was intimidated being at the table with her, and I just, because I know how influential she is, and how smart she is, how great she is at this. I'm thinking, my God, if people are doing this to you, what are they doing to someone who isn't as well known as you are? And it made me angry. It kind of broke my heart that, it's like, why do we care? I mean, they're brilliant. They know what they're doing. They're great at this. They have these amazing experiences. Like, just let them do their thing. Why do we have to try to ruin that?
Yeah, but that's actually, like, I was surprised a lot that well, I constantly collaborate with communities like Women Who Code, and also, like, they support different events, like they share the event with the communities. We give, like, tickets for free, and we encourage, like, hey, we would love to have girls in tech giving
Mhm.
speech in our event. And even though it was shared by communities like Women Who Code, um, we were still not receiving proposals. And
Mm.
um, then I was like, oh my God, this was like the biggest challenge organizing, like, the first edition. I was like, what should we do? And then the what helped us a lot, what worked really well, when I started to speak with other speakers who already confirmed the attendance, or just, like, friends from the industry. I was like, hey, could you refer or introduce me via email to a woman who you believe would be, like, a, let's say, a perfect fit for the event.
Yeah.
And it really helped a lot. Like, when actually, I think, when a woman was receiving this message from a friend or from a colleague, like, hey, she's really expert
Right.
in, for example, I don't know, in functional programming or in DDD, and I really believe she should take part in this event. The response rate and the acceptance rate was much higher, rather than when I was contacting this,
Sure.
let's say, women directly. So that was really helped, like, the, let's say, the referral part. And that's, like, when how I got the first woman. Then I asked that woman,
Yeah.
like, hey, do you have, like, any other women in mind who would like to participate in the event? And that's how, like, it was starting. And
Yep.
now, finally, like, we have a big pool of women who can take who can really give quality content.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think, again, it's on all of us to try to make this a more welcoming space as well. And, again, it really does pain me that we've done so poorly at that in this industry. And, fingers crossed we can start making some improvements there. But yeah, you've got stuff. Share it, please. I beg you. So let's see. Switching gears slightly here. So Glenn says apparently you can get a 20% off on everything on. Is that really a website, Glenn, or are you just making fun of me here with your code there? But yes, and then, of course, Codes with Sean is apparently trying to reach me about my car's extended warranty, cyber menu. Well played, Sean. Well played. So yeah, it's fingers crossed we can make some progress there. And I think, getting back to Glenn's earlier comment, it's just, this is all about just growing that community and making this the large tent that it can and should be. And so hopefully we can continue doing that. And as people start seeing more people that look like them in these positions, that will encourage more people that look like them to throw in a call for paper or get up there, and realize, yeah, I can do that. I mean, I remember the first time I realized that I could, like, write a book was when my friend Nathan told me about, oh yeah, I used to go to Caribou and work on my book. And I thought, well, wait, you're just a normal dude. I always thought people who wrote books were up on these pedestals. Well, it's like, well, if Nathan can do it, then I can do it. And it's the same thing with presenting at a conference. It you can do it if you want to do it. You just have
Yeah.
to throw your hat in the ring and be willing to give it a shot. And hopefully we can give you a good welcoming audience.
Also, like, we really try to create, like, lists and posts, actually, um talking about this woman who make a difference,
Yeah.
because this is not so obvious, and not all of them participate in events, so they're not very well known. However,
Hmm.
they have brilliant results, and I think it was like 4 years ago when I discovered Carola Lilienthal. She's an absolutely brilliant software architect, and 4 years ago she wrote her first book, if I'm not mistaken. It's called Sustainable Software Architecture. It was received very well, and this year, when we have been writing a book with other software architecture experts. Well, I think, Nate,
Yeah,
the book.
I've got a copy of it over here next to me. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you have it.
I do.
Okay.
It's sitting here on my book pile next to my desk.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, when I was actually gathering all those experts, like actually 10 software architects, finally accepted, let's say, my invitation, and said like, hey, let's do that. So one chapter per each software architect, and we have the book. With this initiative, you can't imagine how difficult it was to convince women to participate in this
Sure.
initiative and actually write the chapter. Unfortunately, like, I'm not proud of this result, but unfortunately, only one out of this
Mm,
10 software architects is woman, and is Carola Lilienthal, who already
sure.
wrote the book. However, I reached more than 100. I swear, more than 100
Wow.
women were reached. And all of them said like, I'm not well. Also, like, Neil Ford, Michael Keeling, Dave Farley, Ian Woods, and when they see this kind of names who already accepted this, is like, oh, I'm not feeling like I'm at the same level with Neil Ford, for example. I was like, but this is not about like comparing yourself, right?
Right.
Like, it's really about your experience, about your project. I think everyone can share something
Yes.
useful.
Yes.
Also, for example, João Rosa, who is Portuguese, and he's not a native speaker. He spoke actually not about pure architectural topic, but he was speaking about socio-technical part of the problem, let's say.
Sure.
But it was incredibly difficult to convince them. And yeah, that's, I would say that in our industry, um, that's the biggest challenge for me.
Sure. Sure. Well, Glenn has a shout out to all the pioneers who are willing to break through that glass ceiling and put themselves out there. And I know it's hard. There's no getting around it. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and any time you get up in front of an audience, it's an opportunity for people to reject you, which I know happens sometimes. You get some amazing feedback when it's anonymous, and so I know how hard that is, and I also know how busy people can be too, and to take the time out of their lives to do that can be challenging, and especially if they don't feel like it's going to be a welcoming environment. And so, yeah, I agree, Glenn. My thanks to everybody who's been willing to put themselves out there. I know how hard that is. So we just have to keep trying to provide opportunities and welcome people into that space as best we can. But here's hoping that in 2 or 3 or 4 years, another call like that gets a better response rate. So
Yeah, let's hope.
yeah, it is fascinating to me that we focus so much in this space on technology, on the new API, on the new language feature, on the new things that were added to the framework, and we tend to ignore the people side of it, and I think most engineers would be better off spending a little bit of effort on the networking and the non-technical networking piece of this. And I know how hard that is, especially for those of us who come at it from kind of that space of being more introverted. Do you have any thoughts, advice on helping people kind of break out of that shell a bit and be willing to grow that network, to put themselves out there a bit and realize that it isn't all just about the technology, that there's people behind all this technology too? I mean, that's part of why I started this whatever this is called, a podcast, a Twitch stream, whatever, just to try to put a spotlight on the people less than the technology. We got plenty of opportunities to talk about the technology. We don't spend enough time, in my opinion, talking about the people.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, right now, talking about, for example, the recruitment process or team members that we value a lot are team members that dominate soft skills and not, let's say, hard skills. Well, who were not dominating, let's say, hard skills at the highest level, but our priority was to identify people who have this hunger to learn, who are proactive, who want to participate in these initiatives, who want to share knowledge, who want to evolve, who want to grow. Because with these people, the stars are born. These people don't just work 8 hours a day and then it's like, I have this shitty work, just like to get my money and that's it. No. Sometimes when we do interviews and we see absolute genius, but it's like, I know everything. Like, you know, like
the arrogance.
We're like, okay, probably that's not the attitude that we're searching for. And based on our experience, these people who came, let's say, as juniors, but were spending time with Christian and other team members that are senior and have been with us for many years. Right now, they are just unbeatable in the projects where they are, and clients just say, like, we try to do this rotation so that our people could spend like 1 year in one project, one year in another project, just like for. But you can't imagine how difficult it is to actually do that, because clients say, like, we are so satisfied with you. Like, no, we're not. No. So yeah, I think that this soft skills, this human factor is very, very, very important.
Yeah. Well, and they're longer lasting skills as well. I know my colleague Adib has a great way of phrasing that these sort of frameworky things tend to last 1 to 3 years, maybe language things last a little longer, and every skill has kind of a lifespan to it. And then these more evergreen things, the networking, the soft skills, the people skills that, again, we tend to ignore at our own peril, my opinion, and I wish we would spend more time focusing on, but it's hard to convince somebody that's got their mindset on the technology that there is another component to this, and it's how you interact with others. The era of sort of the lone wolf developer is long since passed. You are going to be on a project with other people, and your success is in many ways rate limited by your ability to interact well with other people.
Absolutely.
My opinion. So
yeah.
Sean says this is a Nate cast. I like that idea. I may have to trademark that, Nate cast. We'll see if Apple can help me market that. And Glenn has a great question here. Do you think lightning talks are an easier path or a smoother on-ramp to getting folks into the sort of speaking roles, to maybe encouraging, some underrepresented folks to take a shot at this, where it's less of a commitment, although I'll be honest with you, I've always thought the shorter the talk, the harder it is to prepare, but that's just me. But it is at least it's an easier lift. I'm not asking you to put together 8 hours of material to teach people. It's a 10-minute talk, a 15-minute talk. What do you think about that as an on-ramp for new folks?
Actually, when we were planning different events, what we have seen is the debate format or the panel discussion format works really well when there is a group of, let's say, female participants like this. They see like they're not alone. This is not something that they have to prepare. Of course, like we normally share, let's say, like what we would be talking about. And then we always ask, like, is there anything that you, let's say, do not dominate, or is there anything you would like to skip, so they don't feel like anxious, and that's it. And then at first, maybe like the first round of questions, everyone is like more shy, but after the second round of questions, like it just goes naturally, and yeah, that's what's working a lot in Barcelona,
Oh, sure.
especially.
Yeah, I
And
agree with Glenn that the expert panels are underrated for that. And one of the beauties of an expert panel is you don't have to answer every question. You can let a few go by if it's not interesting to you or
mm,
not something you want to engage in. And it also gives you the opportunity to kind of take the question and answer the question you really wanted to answer. And so you can kind of go in your own direction if you want. And also a lot less intimidating than being the one
mm,
sole person up there. That's a fantastic idea. And yeah, Glenn, you are too long-winded for a lightning talk, but then so am I. So, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Dan has a good point here about using lunch and learns as a great way of getting comfortable as well. And I agree, Dan. I know that's certainly how I unwittingly started doing this more years ago than I care to admit by leading a book club. And then next
mm.
thing you know, I'd done that for like 5 straight years and realized, oh, I actually just practiced giving presentations for 5 years. Oops. So yeah, that's another encouraging one. And I will admit too, I think this is something I've often recommended to people. Starting a book club is a great way of bringing new
Mm,
ideas into a company. And so if you're really passionate about something, or you just want an excuse to read a book,
mm.
get a few like-minded colleagues together and talk about it once a week for an hour. I mean, I've never been
Absolutely.
at a company that's discouraged that. I've
Yeah.
never Almost every company I've been at, they'll buy you the books, and some of them will even like buy you lunch as part of that if you ask.
Mm,
So don't be afraid to ask.
absolutely. Yeah, also like we have both initiatives implemented in our company, Lunch and Learn.
Heck yeah.
Like this, also people love to go to the office, like yeah, spend it together, learn something.
Hmm.
And book club would normally have on Fridays in the afternoon. And actually, this is a good point. We actually split it like this book as like 10 chapters,
Yeah.
and we split it like every week we speak about like one chapter, so it's like
Right.
it's readable, it's doable, and there is some time to reflect. And people who are not really into public speaking or not really into like sharing their thoughts in this virtual book club that we
Yeah.
have, they were actually actively participating. And yeah, after that, I don't remember like where we met. I was like, hey, actually, like during the book club, you're very active. Like normally you were more like yeah, like not shy, but
More passive
and
maybe in their approach.
yeah. And this person's
Hmm.
like, yeah, actually, this format helped me a lot
Sure.
to gain this confidence in sharing my opinion, because
Yeah.
the group is not that huge. We're not talking about a conference with like 500 people. We're not talking about public speaking. It's just asking questions, sharing
Right.
thoughts, and there is like mm, no wrong question. You are not
Right.
here like to defend something. And yeah, this initiatives in our case works very very well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I've done that a lot in my career, and it is. I mean, first and foremost, it's great motivation to actually read a book. So it's hard sometimes to find the time, especially if it's just you, yourself, and I trying to do it. But by knowing, oh yeah, on Tuesday or Friday or whatever day you're meeting, I'm going to be in a room with, or I'm going to be on a Zoom call with half a dozen of my coworkers. Yeah, I better read that chapter. And all of a sudden now that 20 to 60 minutes of work is more attainable than it would be, or again, you have that motivation to do it. And I've seen that really shift organizations where something that wasn't really that prevalent before, that becomes kind of the nucleus of growing that. I saw that with sort of DevOps back in the day when we went through Jez and Dave's book on continuous delivery, that the core of what became our DevOps function was in that study group basically. And so
Mm.
it's just an important way of, or it's an unheralded way, I think, of bringing new ideas in and motivating yourself to kind of keep up with what's happening. So strongly encourage you to start your own user group or your own book club if you have not already. So now you're based in Barcelona. How was it settling in to Barcelona? Did it take you some time to kind of adjust? I mean, it is. I mean, I love Spain. I love Barcelona in particular. Although I will admit, every time I'm there, I'm like, man, 9 o'clock is like early for dinner. Okay, all right, I can make this work. Did it take you some time to kind of adapt to that life
No,
cycle,
no.
or?
Actually, from day one, let's say, I started to feel like I'm at home. It was 100% my place.
That's awesome.
And every morning, I still remember, and I think I still do it. I still admire every street of the city when uh, when I just walk and see all this architecture, the sun,
Hmm.
people with smile,
Yeah.
everyone say hi. When I order coffee, just a random woman's like, "Hey, beauty, how are you?" So it's just it's just so nice, and here people are so inclusive, so you
Yeah.
never feel yourself as an expert or as a
Hmm.
person who don't belong here. So it was very very smooth process, let's say. And I don't know, it was just, yeah, like that feeling that I'm in the right place in the right time. Also, Barcelona is, as you know, like tech hub. A
Yeah.
lot of big companies open software hubs here, so I felt like this is it. I mean,
Right.
I should be here. And the quality of life that we're
Yeah.
having here is just like mountains, sea. Europe
Hmm.
is just like here. So I have a lot of friends in Paris. It's like every 3 months I go to Paris, just like for a weekend. And that's it. Right now, flights from Barcelona to Ibiza is like €1.
Hmm.
Take a flight to Porto, to Portugal is like €20. So it's like super cool. Then like
All
this
right.
Christmas, what are we doing? 3 hours drive, and we're in a very cool ski resort called Baqueiro Beret. So
See, I'm jealous of your ability to drive to the snow because I live in a place where it's just gonna snow and there's not a lot you can do about it. I mean, it's been much nicer here the last week or so, but I know your weather's better than mine. I think we're basically in the trying to do my Celsius conversions, probably high single digits, low double digits, which is more reasonable for this time of year. It was really cold here in the beginning of November. It's warmed up nicely, but I'm well aware of the fact that your December, January, February weather is a lot better than mine. So, tip of
mm,
the hat for you to be smart enough to live somewhere where you can drive to the snow and then drive away from it when you've had enough of it.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh, yeah, it's remarkable to me. Like one of the other things I love about Barcelona is how the whole region it it's Spain, but it's not Spain, right? And I remember my wife and I visited there, and we had arranged a car to pick us up at the airport, but there was no car when we arrived, and it took us a while to kind of figure out what had happened, and we'd actually end up calling the Madrid office, and the Madrid office couldn't get a hold of the Barcelona office, and nobody knew what was going on, and so we ended up, I don't know, taking a bus or a cab or something, and what we discovered is, oh, there was just a giant celebration that whole weekend, and so the entire city was shut down. And it amazed me that the Madrid office had no idea that this thing that clearly is a huge cultural aspect of Barcelona is like doesn't even on their radar screen. And Madrid and Barcelona are not that far apart, but yet it's a whole different place. And I think that's pretty remarkable to me. And it's one of the really cool aspects to me about Europe in general, but certainly Spain writ large as well.
Yeah, actually, like Barcelona in terms of events, business events, technology events, and leisure events is like, for me, absolutely unbeatable. We have
Mm,
everything here, and yeah, just like you said, there is always something going on. And I live not, let's say, in Barcelona, but like in a small town close to Barcelona. Well, like 30 minutes drive from Barcelona. And here, every single weekend, we have something going on, like for kids, for adults, like some concerts, like. Small town, and in Barcelona you can open like the city agenda, and there is always something going on. If
sure.
you go to the agenda of CCIB, that's the venue where
Hmm.
GSCS took place. There are so many global events, like Mobile World
Right.
Congresses taking place in Barcelona, leading medical health events also, like IoT Congress, for years from now. Like, yeah, it's just Barcelona. It seems like, yeah, the technology hub, for sure, for sure. Like companies like MediaMarkt, Lidl, Amazon, and what else?
Well, it's such a great food culture too.
And food
My
culture.
son
So
still raves about this dinner we had in Barcelona, and God, he would have been. Wow, this was 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember now how many years ago, because time flies when you're having fun or not. He still talks about it, and this was at least 3 years ago, and it's
mm.
pre-pandemic for sure. And in fact, the other day he's like, "Dad, we should try to get one of those cows from that herd." And I'm like, "I don't think that's the kind of thing I can import, buddy. I'm sorry, we're just gonna have to make do with what we can get at the amazing meat markets that are around our house." But yes, I any excuse to come to Barcelona, I'm happy to be there. I'm very jealous that you live there.
Well, you're coming in October, right?
I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it. Wouldn't miss it. Oh
Great.
man, let's see. Let me throw a few lightning questions at you. I haven't done this in a while, so let me see what kind of trouble this gets us into. Coffee, espresso, or tea?
Um, Very difficult question, actually.
Oh, okay,
During the winter, I would say tea. During the
okay,
summer, I would say espresso. Hmm.
like it, like it. How about pie or cake when you're craving a dessert?
I'm not really into dessert,
Okay,
but I would say cake.
okay.
It just reminds me of celebration, of good memories, of happiness. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Oh, Glenn's got a good one. Aisle or window seat? That's one I hadn't thought to ask. Thank you, Glenn. I mean, I know I'm an aisle guy, but what do you think? Do you want to look out the window, or do you want to have the aisle at your disposal?
I'm definitely a window person. I
Okay,
love enjoying the views.
love it, love it. And here's one that I was am interested in, and you're lucky you have both: oceans or mountains.
Another difficult one.
Hmm.
Okay, during the summer, ocean, during the winter, mountains.
Totally fine. Totally fine. Yep. And Vegas says he's also on Team Isle. I'm with you there, Dan. There's just something nice about not having to worry about disturbing someone when you want to get up to use the restroom, or just be able to extend out and out. My family yesterday, we went to the Minnesota Chamber Orchestra had one of those events where they show a movie and then the orchestra plays the soundtrack to the movie. So they do all the orchestral music. And so it was Princess Bride, which is one of our all-time favorites. And my wife managed to book this 3 seats, and I was in the aisle seat, and there was like no seat in front of me. So I just had like the perfect stick my legs out wherever I want. And of course, my kid, who's now taller than me, which makes me feel bad, he's sticking his big hoof out into my space too, because he needs the leg room. Probably more than I do, but that's okay. I'm still taking the aisle. Speaking of the food scene, food truck or Michelin star restaurant? Where do you want to go for dinner?
Michelin star restaurant. I really love
Yeah,
the experience, the ambience, the
that's
degustation
true.
menu. I love
Hmm.
it, love
Oh, there's few things better than getting the fixed menu from someone that's at the top of their food game for sure,
it.
especially if you have the
Especially in
wine pairing to
Spain.
go with it. Oh yes, I know. There's I'm gonna have to book. I'm blanking on the name of the restaurant, but I know you've got at least one 3 star there that I'm that's on my list.
Absolutely.
How about ebooks or paper books?
paper books for sure.
My son would agree with you, and it surprises me that a digital native such as himself doesn't want to read a book on a tablet. He wants to read a paper book. All right, that's fine.
In my case, actually, like I read a lot of articles. I read a lot of business related, technology related content. Yeah, like work related content a lot
Sure.
in a digital format. But when it is actually a book and not an article or not like a report, I really prefer a printed book.
Okay.
It's just easier for me to concentrate, to focus, and
Sure.
yeah.
That's a good point. The downside of the iPad or tablet based world is you have the entire internet at your disposal, and it's very easy to get down a rabbit hole, without really wanting to. Yeah, that's a very good point. So, how about action, comedy, or drama when it's time to stream something? What are you reaching for?
Comedy or drama? It depends on who I watch it with. I would say,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I know during the pandemic, I was reaching for comedies as much as humanly possible.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably like now, this pre-Christmas season, maybe comedy, just like to have
Do
good
you
mood.
have a set of like holiday movies that you watch routinely? I mean, we've started that process here in my household. The set of holiday movies has begun. Do you have something similar?
Yeah, especially well, it was like our family tradition. Now I have a 3 years old daughter, and she loves this movie as well. So Home Alone is
Yes.
definitely our choice.
So, do you just subscribe to the belief that Die Hard is actually a Christmas movie?
Which one?
Die Hard, the Bruce Willis, Nakatomi Tower.
Christmas movie.
Because it takes place at Christmas. It's the Nakatomi Christmas party, and
Yeah,
so
you
I
can
I believe
relate
it's a
it
Christmas
to
movie.
Christmas.
I believe
You
it's a
believe
Christmas movie,
that?
not in the traditional sense of Santa Claus comes down the proverbial chimney.
Yeah. Like I can't say no, but this is not the first movie that pops up in my mind when I think about Christmas movies.
Totally understandable. Totally understandable.
Mm.
So how about cats versus dogs?
Dogs. I'm really a
Okay.
dog person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My
It's like
cats have been circling around during our conversation here today. That's pretty normal for them.
it's like I don't know, since my childhood I'm really into dogs.
Sure.
And I had dogs and cats. And I think when I was like around 7 years old, a cat just betrayed me. It was like around March, and I just
Sure.
decided that he wanted to go with another cat.
Oh.
Uh, and yeah, he just left the house and never came back.
And
And
you've
then
never forgiven the
first,
species. Understandable.
yeah, so I felt like okay.
Cats are unique creatures, I guess would be the politest way to put it. They're always quick to remind you that who's in charge. And I think the best description I ever saw was on like a pet grooming thing, and it was dogs have owners, cats have staff. I thought, yeah, that's pretty fitting because I'm as I look around, I know Han and Chewie are floating around, and they do run the show. There's no getting around it, and so we love to put words in their mouths. So oh god, ugly snout. That's right. That's what Feel Snable translates to. I learned that last week. Matthias taught me that one. So hello to you as well, Feel Snable. And I agree with Glenn. Die Hard's a Christmas movie. They even made Christmas ornaments. So I'm fully support you in the Die Hard Christmas ornament camp, Glenn. And I also agree that with Feel Snable, cats are nobility, or at least they think they are, and they're pretty sure they run the show, and I don't think they're wrong. I mean, it's a pretty good gig if you're a well kept house cat, but the end of so. Well, Ekaterina, we're already past the top of the hour. I don't want to take any much more of your time. I know it's late for you, although I suppose it's not even dinner yet for you in Barcelona. So I have
It
to
is, it
constantly
is.
recalibrate my timing. The restaurant that my son still speaks very fondly of that we ate at in Spain, we got the earliest dinner reservation of 9 o'clock, and when we arrived, we were the only ones there. And it's like, yeah, we're not natives. We're not natives. So, I'm pretty sure Barcelona's Central European time. Yeah. That's what I thought. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, actually, right now, it's like when. Thank you. Right now, like at 8, restaurants just start opening. So I'm not sure if you have that in the US, but here, like we have lunch from 1 till 4. Then from 4 till 8, everything is closed, and then we have like this dinner from 8 till 12. Oh, sorry, my daughter just came.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem.
From the kindergarten. So I will just go to meet her. Hi.
No worries. Well, let me just plug one more time that we got Global Software Architect Summit. We'll be back in October of 2023. Check it out. Barcelona, much worse place as you could be. And it is, I can tell you from firsthand experience, an outstanding show. You guys put on a great event with a great audience. So you should join us next October. It will be a lot of fun. And then I'll be hanging out with Michael Feathers here, also from GSAS.
Oh, really?
So excited to hang out with Michael here coming up in December. So that should be fun. But I will also echo what my main man here, Glenn, says. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day. And good luck to Spain in the World Cup. I'm sure they'll do better than the United States. So
thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, Nathaniel.
Well, my pleasure.
And I'm so happy that you're coming to GSES in October.
Oh, I'm so happy you wanted me back. That always makes me happy. So I do appreciate that. Can't wait. Hopefully I can drag someone from my family with me this time. We'll see if we can make that happen.
Absolutely.
We'll try our best.
And I will send you some recommendations on Michelin restaurants for sure.
Excellent. I'm always looking for more. I had the good fortune in May when I was in London. Neil Ford and I managed to knock down a pretty decent number of stars over a short period of time. So I had to kind of really get them all in a short chunk. So I'm always hoping to expand my repertoire. But well, thank you again, and we'll see you soon. Enjoy your holidays, and I can't wait to see you again in Barcelona, if not sooner.
Yeah. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
You too. Cheers.